Okay.
So, hello everyone. Welcome to fifth Guwahati MuleSoft Meetup. Thank you everyone for joining. So today we have Ashish Party with us, who will be our speaker, and he will be speaking on the topic Anypoint platform integration with external IdPs. So I'm your host Abhishek. So I'm working as an associate solution architect in FSRO and recently got promoted as a MuleSoft ambassador, and I have overall of 6+ years of IT experience and 4+ years in MuleSoft. I'm a leader for Guwahati and Lucknow Meetup group. I'm certified developer and architect. So that's all about me. Ashish, you wanna introduce yourself, please?
Hi everyone, Ashish here. Thanks for inviting me, Abhishek. Okay. Yeah, so I have around 11 years of experience, 11 plus now. Okay, 6 plus of in integration domain, and more specific to MuleSoft around 4.5 years. I'm a certified developer and architect. I'm a MuleSoft mentor and leading, Coimbatore Mule Meetup. I also worked as a solution architect in Episode. We are buddies now, Abhishek and me. So that's how we share the knowledge. That's how we organize meetups and call each other as a speaker. Okay. So that's about me. Okay. So yeah, over to you, Abhishek.
Yeah, thank you, Ashish. And it's always pleasure to have you in our meetups. So just moving forward, I will read out some safe harbor statements. So both the speaker and the host are organizing this meetup in individual capacity only. We are not representing our companies here. This presentation is strictly for learning purpose only. Organizer or presenter do not hold any responsibility that same solution will work for your business requirements. Next slide, please, Ashish. Yeah. The presentation is not meant for any promotional activities over here. Thank you. Yeah. So now some housekeeping activities. So the recording of this meetup will be uploaded in the event page within 24 hours. So you can go to the meetup page and you can access the videos over there. Also, like we will request you to give your valuable feedbacks because that is very important for us. So you can give us your feedbacks and you can suggest like what next topic you want. Also, whatever questions you have, you can put that in the chat and we will address that question. So that's all from
Yeah,
my
the
end.
last point is very
Over to you,
yeah,
Ashish.
yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah, yeah. Thanks for that all update, Abhishek. The last point is
thank you, Ashish.
important for me. Okay, always I focus more on that point. That is like kind of bread and butter for the meetup groups and the speakers and whoever organizes. So there they look at the feedbacks, and then from the feedbacks we will figure out that okay, what the audience is looking for. Okay, based on that we decide the topics and all things. Okay, so please after this session you'll get link to or mail. Please go ahead and do that. That is important for community. Okay, yeah. So let's move on to the agenda part. So today, as a topic, right? It's towards the authentication and authorization. So authorization for our focus is today on authentication. So we are going to see authentication part. So we'll be seeing overview of how we are managing client identification, consumer identification, okay, and how they are getting access. They are getting access to the Anypoint platform. Okay, we will talk about what is OAuth 2, what is OpenID, SAML 2. Okay, we'll talk about the use cases on these different protocols. We'll see is there any guidelines when we're moving from one SSO vendor to other SSO providers. Okay, identity providers. We'll talk about little bit. We'll talk about Auth Dance, which is really important when we talked about API. Security, how this auth dance works, where the credentials are getting stored, who all are those credentials are getting, where all the tokens are getting generating, who is validating. All those things will discuss in the auth dance. Then we'll jump onto the demo part. So now our any point till now. I mean, I think not sure. Last month, I guess, or before the last update, whatever last update happened on the Anypoint platform. Okay. Now Anypoint platform supports multiple identity provider. Okay. Till that point, it was supporting only one. Okay. Now we have option to configure 25 identity providers in Anypoint platform. Okay, so definitely when we're moving from one to another, there has to be guidelines. Okay, we'll see whether how can we avoid creating duplicate users. So we'll talk about this all in details, and then we'll see. Okay, if somebody is logging from Okta or some Azure ID or some Google Salesforce from there, how those groups are getting mapped inside my Anypoint platform. Okay, because that, right, it's really hectic job for the platform administrator, right, to map manually each user to the roles and permissions in any point platform. That will be very hectic job. Okay, and definitely you'll miss some permissions, and then that guy will be started crying and then shouting on you that I'm not able to access some blah 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 from the any point platform. So and time permits, I show you all the demos on all the points which we are planning in the agenda. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about first why we are discussing all these topics. Why we need this authentication and authorization, right? So authorization part is like authorization is a small portion of like it's like a the I can say that successor of authentication. First, then authorization happens. Okay, so authentication is the process of validating the identity of a subject, we can say. Okay, or we can say user or employee or client or consumers, all are subjects. Okay, so authentication, this is the process of validating the identity of that. Okay, identity to get access to either application, API, microservices, or even data. Now, data is important everywhere. We are accessing data. Okay, and authorization is permitting and that authenticate person. Okay, whoever that subject is, whether it's a user or one other application or consumer client, blah blah blah. So authenticated users, what they can perform on my specific resource or on my data. So these are the two operations generally we'll be talking about here. Authentication, that is validating the identity of the subject, and second one is authorization. So what that authenticated person can perform operations on my resources. Okay, so both authentication and authorization, okay, they goes hand in hand. Okay, to protect your resources. Okay, so for example, today how authentication works. So we have multiple protocols, multiple process to secure your API, secure your public facing, basically whatever the where we can get the attacks actually on the public facing layer, right? So in if you're talking about the MuleSoft, we generally secure our experience layer or whoever, not only experience layer, whoever is getting public access. So it can be your process API also, not always your only your experience API will get access. Sometimes process API also, because if you don't have mm, experience API for some business requirement, right? Definitely your process API will get access, exposed to the public. That is like rare scenario. So having public face, those APIs, those systems, that data will be securing via either single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, or we'll add consumer identity with, so we call it CIAM. Okay, so SSO, if I talk about that, right? So it's like all users to get access to to your various applications through SSO, and this will be it's like a federation. When the user logs in, it spreads across the different domains. Like SSO credentials or the identity information will be stored in some external system. In maybe in our scenario, we'll be talking about Azure AD, or we'll talk about Active Directory, or we'll talk about Salesforce, or one login. There are multiple systems are there which provides this SSO authentication process. So basically, we won't be keeping that credentials to your Anypoint platform. That will be there in some other system. Okay, and that guy will take care of handling your credentials, handling your identity information. Okay, so multi-factor authentication is once extra, like when you pass username and password, after that it asks you to provide the one-time access code that whoever website you're accessing or API you're accessing, So for example, in our Anypoint platform itself, right, there is a MFA. Okay. So whenever you logged in via your Anypoint platform credentials, I'm not talking about the SSO login. Okay. Via SSO login, yeah. We don't need a MFA. That is not possible with SSO. Be there only when you log in with Anypoint platform credentials. It will ask you once you landing on that page, right? It will ask you whether you want to enable that MFA. So whenever you enable MFA, what it will do with your username and password after that authentication, the website will send authorization code to your mobile or whichever systems you configured there, and from that, or it's your contact number. On that, you will receive that code. They need to provide that code. Then only you'll be completely or 100% authenticated. That is what happens in MFA. Okay, and then we are talking about CM, right? So basically, it's like here generally what we do users here in SSO we don't keep any information on that website. In MFA generally extra information are passing, and in CI register the users. Okay, we keep the policies there, and they'll will configure authentication features. All those things will be there on. Let's say I'm accessing Facebook, right? On Facebook itself I'll create account, everything will be kept it there. Okay, and then third option is like combining one of or more than one of above. So with that, we are combining authentication plus attribute based access control. Okay, so here we call it that is a jargon most of the people are aware of. Okay, so that redirects the customer always to pass the MFA information. So first it will get authenticated, and then whichever document you are accessing or whichever resource that time, whether you are internal user or external user or application, it will ask you to multi-factor authentication. Okay, so that is what, so there are multiple. Okay, I'm just picking some of those that big list. Okay, so Abhishek, let me know, okay, if there are any questions. Okay,
Sure.
so
Just
yeah, so when you think, right, when your organization, I mean, which is suitable for your organization, like whether it's a self-hosted identity or it's like external vendor. So this will be decided like when your company, how big your company is, and whether you have that capacity, because maintaining the information is a job. Okay, you need expertise for that. Okay, so for example, in our, if you go with the trial account, everything, all our credentials related informations or these things will be maintained by Anypoint platform itself. Okay, but when you go product, right? And if you have very big customer base, that in that case, maintaining that information in your endpoint platform, it's really hectic. Okay, if your organization is doing, I am maybe I'll say that I'm jealous about you. Okay, but most of the clients will be having their LDAP server extra platform, because they will be having that business before coming to the Anypoint platform. So they don't want to move that complete user base or customer base to the Anypoint platform. They will keep outside. Okay, it can be Okta, it can be Azure AD, it can be Active Directory. Those will be keeping, or even now that user credentials information at multiple systems also. So getting information from the multiple systems and managing it, it's really hectic. So generally client will do outsourcing that to the external systems. Just like in our demo we'll talk about Azure AD and we'll talk about the Okta. Okay, so that's, so definitely we'll be asking these questions whenever we are thinking about any external vendor or self-hosted or hosted somewhere else. So when we are thinking about this, when we are deciding for any external identity provider, we will ask these questions: whether, okay, which one is right for my organization? When should I use hosted one, or when should I use self-hosted one? All these things questions will be asking when we are deciding. So in this case, right now, if you see, right, this is my identity provider, and it is in the center, this one. Okay, so let me take, so this center, this is my this is my Anypoint platform, okay, where I have my resources. If somebody wants to access, I have already configured this with the external. In my case, I have given the Okta, okay. So if somebody wants to, log into my Anypoint platform or access any API, they have to go to, Okta. First, they get here, and then that will, so whenever you'll get here URL different, we'll talk about that URL. Once you hit that URL, you get options how many external identity provider are configured with your endpoint. You have to select one of them. Once you select that, it will redirect that based on that identity provider, it will redirect to the login screen, okay. Information, that information get validated system, maybe Sokta or Azure AD, and then it will give you the response whether it will be a boolean true or false. Then after that, based on that response, your Anypoint platform will access your platform or access your API. It can be API security or it can be user identity. So this is what the abstract level. Okay, we are going to see how it works in a real scenario. Okay. So now, so we talked about whether we should go for hosted one or whether we should go for self-hosted one, when we should decide which one is good for our organization. Okay. Now we calls like OAuth, SAML, OpenID. Okay. So there are keep your data safe. Okay, as there are ways to attack it. So from multi-factor authentication to SSO or to the on-premise firewalls, all these things are there. Okay, so multiple options. Okay, so for developer or IT professional, the selecting one of them is first understand those. Okay, so who all are responsible for identity, who for authorization. So if we talked about here authorization, right? There's a OAuth 2.0. It's a authorization framework. Okay, it's not a authentication framework. So for authentication, we have SAML and OpenID. Okay, so SAML works in a different way. SAML is the industry standard. It's there from long time, and it's communicate. It sends the request in XML. It sends it receives the response in XML. Okay. Now OpenID is the latest one. It's on top of OAuth. Okay, and it is responsible for. And so now again the question is whether I should go for SAML or OpenID or for authorization or 2.0. Okay, so based on your requirement, okay, which kind of applications you wanted to access, or so SAML versus OpenID, or uh, so definitely as a technical point of view, okay. So if you're comparing OpenID and OAuth 2.0, so the difference is the identity, token, which is responsible for authentication. That won't be there in the authorization too. Okay. Then which one we should in which scenario? So like for example, if I take the mobile application example, there is no question, you should go for OpenID Connect. Okay, and if your application is already supported SAML, then go for SAML. Okay, if you're working on new application, better to go for the new one, which is OpenID. Okay, so you need to follow the trend. Like trend is use OpenID Connect. That is also getting matured nowadays. Okay, but the SAML is the industry standard. And then if you're working for new, go for new. And if you're talking about protect your APIs, then Auth 2.0. So which one, where, and what, all those things. Okay, so those are always a question for IT guys, developers, which one we should select. So I'll take a pause over here. If you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, Ashish, no questions for
Mhm.
me.
Okay. So let's talk about the use cases for these three protocols. Okay. So if I'm talking about OAuth, so in day-to-day life, we actually use these protocols, but we don't know that which kind of protocols we are using. So for example, if I take the Trello, this is like Kanban kind of, where we do the listing, and then we track those things. So let's say Trello wants to access your Gmail accounts. okay, Gmail contacts. In this situation, this you are a user, Trello is the consumer because he wants to consume your Gmail contacts, and Gmail is your provider. Okay, so Gmail provides the token that allows Trello to access the contacts. Okay, and this behind the scene, we don't see that, right? The flow behind the scene, this flow happens. Like, so you are the user, Trello is consumer, and your Gmail contacts are getting shared with the Trello, and that sharing happens based on the token. Okay, so this is one use case for OAuth. Now OpenID connection. So OpenID is generally, so in our demo also I'll show you that. So when I'm logging to Okta, I am not creating any user in Okta. Actually, I'm logging via my GitHub account. Get authenticate via GitHub account, and then I'll be accessing my Okta. Similar way, if you are, see, so sometimes we use our Facebook account, sometimes we use our Gmail account to get authenticated when we are accessing third party applications. Like in my case, let's talk about the Spotify. Okay, so I wanted to access Spotify. I don't want to create new account in Spotify. What I can do, I use my Facebook account to authenticate and access the Spotify. This is the use case where we are using OpenID Connect. Okay, so the credentials, if somebody attacks Spotify, my credentials won't be get compromised. Those will be still safe with the Facebook. Okay, so Facebook is actually giving access to the Spotify to if user wants to access some features or services from the Spotify, that Facebook is responsible for authenticating. Okay, so my credentials are safe with Facebook, not with the Spotify. Okay, third one is SAML. Okay, so SAML generally used by the enterprises. Okay, so once you pass, your username or credentials once, you don't need to pass. So basically, this is like internal to your enterprise. Okay, once you log in once, then you don't need to pass the credentials again and again for accessing the internal applications. So within internal network, this SAML will be used to authenticate users throughout the organization. So these are the use cases we generally, categorize, or we can say, we can clearly say that, okay, this is the category of OpenID Connect, this is the category of SAML, this is the category of OAuth. Okay. Now there are common IDPs which are supported by SAML 2.0. So like Okta, OneLogin, Google, Azure, this supports SAML 2.0. There are a big list, but I just picked a few. This one SAML. So later I'll use my keyboard. So mouse is going. Okay, and these are some common IDPs which supports the OpenID Connect. Okay, so there is OpenAM here, Ping Federate here. Then, so yeah, we are going to see how we can configure those things. But sometime you'll get a question, right? If I configure my Anypoint platform with external IDP, right? So if I want to expose something, okay, let's say I don't have platform credentials. Okay, so generally we connect from our Anypoint Studio via platform credentials, right? So let's say you want to download some modules to your Anypoint palette or in Anypoint Studio palette, then you generally connect to your exchange via your platform credentials, right? Now, if you don't have platform credentials, let's say your platform is enabled with your external identity provider now, the assets to the exchange or get the connectors or modules from the exchange. So you need to use a custom domain. Okay, so here when you try to configure your configurations, right, you'll get option to configure via custom domain. Okay, so once you give the custom domain, your custom domain name, where to find that custom domain, I'll show you that during our demo also. So now let's see, you can see on my screen, right? So I have option to pass the platform credentials also. Now let's say this option is gone, I don't have platform credentials list. Now your Anypoint platform is enabled with Azure AD and Okta. So you can select, okay, which one, where your credentials are, whether your credentials are there in Okta, you can select this option. Once you select this option, your credentials will be configured with Anypoint Studio. Okay, and then you can publish your exchange uh, assets, or you can. Okay. Now, so there's a big question when you are moving from one external identity provider to the new one. Okay. So let's talk about the SAML based one. So definitely you'll be asking a lot of questions here. So when you log in via external identity provider, right? The users will be created in your Anypoint platform. Okay. And even if you have same user ID, same email address, if you're it will create new user inside your endpoint platform. Okay, even if your Anypoint platform credentials are same. Okay, so in Anypoint platform, if you have same username, okay, if you're logging via Okta and you're logging via Anypoint platform, those two users will be treated as a different user, and those will be maintained separately in Anypoint platform. Always people will get confused. Okay, so I have a link from the MuleSoft documentation. It will clearly show you that even, and I can show you the demo also. If I log in via Okta with the same username and same email address, and with the same username and same email Azure AD, there will be two users created inside your Anypoint platform. So we have provision to how we can avoid that. Okay, how we can prevent those being created in your Anypoint platform. We'll discuss that also. If you have external identity provider your Anypoint platform, and if somebody logins via Anypoint platform, how that they will log in? So somebody from your Anypoint platform invites some external user. Okay, so those details will be created separately in Anypoint platform, not provider. So whenever somebody logs in via Anypoint platform, those users will be created in Anypoint platform. Those won't get shared with your external identity provider. Okay, so that is again a problem. No, nobody can stop that. Nobody can stop that. Okay. Third one is there any guideline? Okay, so is there any guideline when we are switching from one SSO to another SSO? Okay, so these things, and I'll show you that how we can prevent this duplicate user first. Okay, any questions, Abhishek, till now?
No question, Ashish. Guys, any question you have? Are you getting it? Please put it on chat. I don't see any question till now.
Am I fast or is it not getting in the context or something? Yeah, please provide your feedback, guys. Okay, we accordingly we change this context.
Gajanan said,
Okay.
please explain point number two
Hmm.
again.
Yeah, point number two, right? So, okay, for example, okay, so from Anypoint platform, there is option to invite users. Okay, invite users. So, during demo, I'll show you where we can invite the users. So, you go to users section, there is option to invite users. Okay, so let's say, so once you invite the user, right, they will create their username password, and that part I'm talking about. So you have ID provider which is configured, let's say Okta. Now you have you somebody invite you from Anypoint platform. Now those credentials will be stored in identity provider or in Anypoint platform. Those will be stored in Anypoint platform. Okay, that's what the second point. Those are not getting shared via Okta. Those won't be there in Okta. Okay, those will be there in Anypoint platform only. Okay, so there is option to invite. Nobody can stop that. Okay, so if your admin is inviting someone, we cannot stop it. So there is no provision to stop that. So that's what we are talking about. If somebody gets an invitation from Anypoint platform, those users will be created in Anypoint platform only. Those won't get created in a identity. Okay, so then you need to manually send an email to your security team, whoever is handling Okta. They need to create that user manually inside your Okta. Somebody is getting access from somebody is getting invitation from Okta, then definitely the credentials will be created over there, not in any one platform. Okay, shall I move, Abhishek? Please, I'm not able to see that screen. Okay, I'm sharing the
Yes,
screen. So
yes, Ashish.
okay, so we were talking about the duplicate users, right? Here you can see. So I'm logging via SAML Okta, and if you look at my username, it's the same as a username when I'm logging in from Azure AD. Still, this and user email address, still these two things are same, but I'm able to see two users getting created. these are duplicate users getting created inside Anypoint platform. But these two users are maintained separately, and these are two different users. Okay, we can avoid this. Okay, we can avoid this. I'll show you in the next slide how we can avoid this. Okay, but there are some restrictions over there. So from one SSO to other SSO. Okay, so basically your user will be identified in Anypoint platform with three combinations, or I mean basically the combination of three things: issuer ID, audience URL, and username. Okay, if these three things are same, then only one user will be created. If this value, if it differs, right, then new user will be created. So if you have, see, we have one existing user over here, which issuer ID is opta.com a dash dash dash. Okay, your username is first name, last name, and at the rate example dot. Still the same thing. Okay, now you are moving from one SSO to another. Issuer ID will get changed. Okay, now you can use the same issuer ID which was there earlier. That provision is there. Okay, but restriction is, you need to be whether we can use this combination. We can reuse this combination: issuer plus audience plus user. If you are able to use this, then no duplicate users will be created in your Anypoint platform. Otherwise, every time when you log in from Okta, new user I'm talking about. Okay, when you log in from Okta, that SSO will happen. It comes to your Anypoint platform, and Anypoint platform creates new user. Okay, if this combination is not matching. Okay, if this combination matches, it will first disable this IDP and start using new IDP for the same user. Okay, with this restriction. Okay, that's the reason I mentioned here. If your SSO IDP support combination, or there is a way we can reuse it, we can go ahead and use. Okay, issuer plus audience plus username. So this issuer and audience URL, right? When we configure IDP, that time we'll be passing these two URLs. Username will be coming from when you're creating your account. So general guidelines when you are moving, changing or switching to a new SSO. The first thing is make sure, okay, at least one user, okay, one non-SSO user should be there on your organization in Anypoint platform. Why? Because if anything goes wrong with your SSO, okay, identity provider, then you should have one backward channel or backside channel, we can say that, to handle or control or your, there has to be one, at least one non-SSO user in master organization. Okay, keep with that in mind. Okay, second thing, so when you are checking for the new identity provider, so whether you know definitely second point is not that important, because when we are using new identity provider, definitely it will be supporting your organization. Okay, then check when you are migrating, right? Generally we should try all these things in non-product environment. Okay, you should not try directly in the production environment. So when you do for the client, right, we first implement on environment, then we go for the product environment. Backup, so when you are migrating it anything, okay, so prepare a document. So whatever configurations were there for the old IDP, just take it and screenshots and keep those documents, so that whenever there's a problem, right, you can clearly validate from the that document. Okay, this was there, now we are moving to this is working or not working. Based on that, you can compare that document. So keep that document also. Okay, to have that document in their corpus. Then if you're talking about SAML based IDP, right? So I was talking about this, right? If possible, try to check whether this combination can be reused. Okay, so that you can avoid those duplicate users being created in your Anypoint platform. Then one more thing, right? When you are logging in from any identity provider, any external ID provider, so if you don't have mapping, right, roles mapping or permissions mapping, now we have teams option in our Anypoint. We can create a team and we can map the external identity provider groups. Okay, so that also we are going to see in the demo. So you can create a profiles in Okta, okay, add that profile to a specific group in Okta, and while logging in, that group information will come into Anypoint platform, and based on the mapping, that user will get permissions from the Anypoint platform. Okay, so default permissions we call it. We don't need to go and manually assign permissions to that particular user. It's based on group and teams mapping. Once your specific group you logging from Okta to your Anypoint platform, if that group is mapped to some specific team and the team will have default permission assigns, those permissions will be assigned to that user and will be able to access. Whether if that team has API manager access, then your user will get API manager access automatically. Okay, so better to go, don't use manual approach because it's very tedious, very hectic. Okay, definitely you'll miss something and then you'll be in trouble. Okay, so better to use Teams mapping with the external ID provider. So better to avoid this. Okay, you cannot pre-provision users created in the moment they log in from new IDP. Okay, so the one scenario we're talking about, right? So we're talking about like sending invitation from your Anypoint platform, even if we have new IDP. Try to avoid that. Ask everyone to log in from the okay. Then so if you are creating right, if that scenario is still possible, then you need to map you know if that user is not there in your external identity provider, then you need to create it and then do the mapping. Okay, if that mapping is not going to happen automatically if you create that user on any point platform. Okay, or if you created user before configuring your new IDP, then you need to configure this user or create this profile again in new IDP, then only it will get configured. Otherwise, whatever permissions you have given in the Anypoint platform, that users will be having only those permissions. Okay. Okay. Any questions, guys?
I don't see any question, Ashish. Any question, guys? Anyone?
Okay.
No questions, Ashish.
Okay. If there are no questions, it's easy for me. Okay. So there is something called Auth Dance. Okay. So literally, this is a dance. I'll tell you how why we are calling it a dance. Okay. So now, till now, we talked about only user identifications, right? We talked about how Okta is getting configured, where our users are getting created in any point platform, if those are getting created via invitation or those are getting created in Okta, how those are getting, their groups are getting mapped with the teams in any point platform. Now, let's say I want to secure my API, public facing API. So we have option to, have external client provider also here. Same, you can use Okta here, we can use Salesforce. Now, let's say we configured your client provider from any point platform. So for that client provider, the credentials will be created in that external LDAP. Okay, so LDAP is nothing but your provider. Okay, so these credentials will be created for your Anypoint platform. Okay, these are for Anypoint platform. So whenever Anypoint platform wants to communicate with that LDAP, these credentials will be used, and these credentials won't be visible to anyone. Okay, so the first step, when you are registering your client provider, that time for any point platform, credentials will be created in LDAP, that external client provider. Okay, and this won't be visible to anyone. It won't be shared to anyone. Okay, so whenever any point platform wants to access LDAP, that guy will use this. Now, let's say you have experience API in Exchange, and that is secured with OAuth policy. Now we have let's say the API which is secured by OAuth policy. Now somebody wants to access it, so he has to go to Exchange first, okay, and from Exchange he will put the request, access request. So what happens the moment he put request for access, if external client provider is not there, credentials will be created in your Anypoint platform itself. Okay, you can see that in Exchange you those credentials. Okay, but if your external is configured, then these credentials will be created in your external client provider. Okay, and those will be shared with Anypoint platform. And finally, those will be with you. Okay, with the user. So let's say this is a client app. This is a mobile app. The mobile app is the experience API which is there in Exchange, which is secured with OAuth policy. Now, now you got the client ID and client secret after putting access request. Now you need to create first a token by using this client ID. Where the token will be created, that token will be created inside your LDAP, that is external identity client provider, and that token will be shared with you. Okay, you or a client application. Now that token with the API URL that will pass on to your experience API, and then your Anypoint platform. Okay, your Anypoint platform will take that token. That token will pass on to your client provider. Your client provider will validate, and then based on the token validation output, that your application will get executed or it will throw you 401 error, okay, to the client application. If that validation is successful, if it is a true, then with that true you will get a client ID also, and your application will get executed, your business logic will get executed. Based on the business logic, you will get a response, and that response will be consumed by client application. So from here we are going, right? This is called dance. Okay, this is used when we are talking about API security. So we are talking about experience API here, right, which is secured by OAuth policy. Okay, now if the client credentials, okay, client credentials are getting reset or rotated in the LDAP server. Okay, now this is tricky part. Okay, if the client credentials are changed in Okta, maybe in the client provider, only those new credentials will be shared with the client application, not with Anypoint platform. Basically, your client credentials, right? Those client credentials will be never used by your Anypoint platform at all. So there is no point on sharing this. I'm not talking about Anypoint platform credentials. I'm talking about client credentials, which are created when you access for your experience API. Now, after some time, right, let's say those credentials are changed, those only shared with the client application, not with Anypoint platform. If you see here from this point, right, only first time those credentials will be shared. If those credentials are getting changed, those changed credentials are not getting shared with any. So if you will be having question, right, why we are talking about this? Because if you see here, right, when we are trying to access our secured API, we are just passing token, and this token is getting generated by the client provider, not with your, not by your Anypoint platform. So we are passing. So this client application left hand side, this application should know the latest credentials. Okay, that's what is happening. New credentials or latest credentials are getting shared with client application only, not with Anypoint platform. So only your Anypoint platform has the old one. In some scenario, if platform wants to share with your LDAP, they have to share with old credentials only. There is no way to update this. Okay, and that is not needed also, because when you read the token URL, this token URL you will be using client provider token URL. Okay, and you'll be passing client ID and client secret, new client secret, because client ID will be same, right? Even if you're changing the credentials, the client ID won't get changed. Only your secret will be changed. So your client provider knows the latest credentials. Your client application knows the latest credentials. You'll get a token. Now you're trying to access your API. In API, only token. So this your Anypoint platform will send the token. Not it's not, it won't use any client ID, client secret. It will use the token. It will pass that token to the, so there will be here there will be validate URL, right? Validate URL. So this validate URL will will be invoked to validate this token. So this token will be validated, and then if based on that validation, you'll get true or false result from the client provider. Based on that result, whether you're based on that result, it will be decided whether to execute the business logic or not. Okay, that's what your auth dance. And yeah, so these are the references we have used for preparing this presentation. So I'll jump on to the demo part. Before that, if you have any questions, let me know. Abhishek.
We have one from Gazanan, like he was asking
Mhm.
any use case for invite user in real time.
As such, no, because the best practices says that. Okay, so I was talking about possible scenarios. Okay, so let's say your external ID provider is down, right, and you wanted to have quick access, given to some special user. Then there is that scenario I can talk about where you'll invite that special user. Your profile will get created in Anypoint platform, and you get access. Okay, but once your identity provider is up and running, okay, then you need to create that profile in that external identity provider again, and then delete that profile or disable that profile in Anypoint platform. You should not have other than org admin any profile active in Anypoint platform without any external identity provider. If you're having external identity provider, okay, that's the best practice. Okay, so to show the demo, we need three things, okay, and all three things with trial accounts. So I'll be creating Okta trial account, Azure AD trial account, and Anypoint platform trial account. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump on to that. Discard. So I'll go to my Anypoint platform first. So I have created fresh account. Okay, and if you go here, we'll be focusing on identity provider only today. So if you see here, there are no identity providers except Anypoint. Okay, so if you don't configure any external ID provider, then Anypoint platform is your LTAP server. Okay, this is your LTAP server. All credentials will be stored over here only. Okay, so there are few important URLs we'll be noting down. So first URL is this one. So I'll copy this. Okay, so I'll just note down 6306. So we'll go to Notepad. Okay, so I'll note down this org, this that whatever I was talking about, right, that is org domain. Okay, so you can find here this training hyphen 6306, or you can go to your organization here, training, and if you see that this is the organization domain here. So either you copy it from here, or you can copy that complete URL and paste it here. This is the important URL. Okay, this will get used when we are trying to log in via external identity provider. Okay? So this is the one URL. Okay, now same thing I'll copy here also, and I'll tell you what this is. One more thing, we'll note down this organization ID also. I'm preparing data which will be required for our setting up our integration. So this is my ID. Okay, so either we can use this as audience URL or this. Both works fine. Okay, so this is your audience URL now. This is our login URL. Okay, and we'll be using access URL also. This one we'll configure later. Okay, now first we'll configure Okta. So first I need to create. I'll just go ahead and create Okta trial account. Okay, so I have created trial account. If I go sign out, sign out, you can log in. So either you can create your profile here, or you can use GitHub. This is OpenID, right? So we are accessing Okta application via the user which is created in GitHub. Okay, so now once you log in, first thing we're going to do is we are going to do create application. First we'll create application. Okay, so you can go ahead and say create app integration. I have already created, okay, simple one. So I'll show you that. Okay, here. So we'll be passing those two URLs, right? I was talking about. So audience URL, this is the URL. Now I need to change this because we are creating fresh account. So I'll copy this URL first. I can go ahead with this URL also. Both URL works, okay? So I'll take this because it's easy to remember, 6306 here. Next. We'll change this URL later, okay? So I just added dummy URL here right now. So single sign-on URL, we'll change it later. Okay, so I'll change this URL for now. Then we need to pass some attribute information from our Okta to our Anypoint platform. So these are the values coming from our Okta: user dot first name, user dot last name, user dot email. This information we pass or and we map it to the attributes in Anypoint platform. These are the Anypoint platform attribute names, all in small letters. Okay. Right now I'm not passing any group specific information, so I'll just remove this. I'll show you later what's the importance of this group information. Okay. So once this is done, save, finish. Okay, that's it. Now here you'll get, if you go to the, here you'll get all the information. Okay, instead of copy pasting this, what I can do, I can download this metadata directly. Okay, you can copy paste this metadata, okay, and paste it in a file. So I have already done that. Okay, so you can see somewhere, yeah, this one. So all that information I have copy pasted in this file. Okay, now this file, why I'm doing it, instead of manually copy pasting this, right, I can use that metadata XML file directly, so that the data from that XML file, it get loaded to my Anypoint platform. Okay, now once you are done with this, go to your Anypoint platform here, identity provider. Now go here and select anyone. Okay, so we'll select SAML 2.0. Now here see, import IDP metadata. So whatever metadata you have downloaded from your Okta, just select that file here. So I'll just select Okta IDP metadata. Now see, all the required information will be auto populated here. See, now you don't need to, just you need to pass the sign off URL and just give the name. So I'll just give a name SAML Okta here. Okay, once you, so you just need to pass only two information, so the name of the IDP provider and sign off URL. Sign off URL you can pass whatever you want. Okay, so I'm just passing anypoint MuleSoft.com. Then we're talking about issuer URL, right? This is coming from Okta, and this is what I was talking about. When you are configuring the new IDP, you can use this URL. And now I'm going to change this audience URL. Audience URL will be copy pasted right here. If you remember, this is the URL we are configured in Okta also. The same URL will be passing here also. So now this URL plus your username, that is the combination of uniquely identifying any user. Okay. So when you're configuring new IDP, you can make use of this same URL. This URL, anyway, this will be same there. Only this is going to change. Everything will be same. Okay, if you select this in the new, then you can avoid creating duplicate users being created in your Anypoint platform. So now you can say save changes. See, let me recap what I have done. I have just uploaded the metadata from Okta. I have given the name. I have passed on this sign off URL and the audience URL. Okay, now so save changes. Okay, now what I do is I do some mistakes. Okay, so those are intentional. Okay, so I'll copy this URL, but I'll not update it here. Let's see what error we are getting. So if I go to application back, close this. After, when I was creating, I was updating, right? I was telling this URL, it was dummy URL. If I don't change this URL with the latest one which got created just now here, let's go to incognito mode and let's see, try logging in via custom domain. It will show you what all options are possible logging your Anypoint platform now. See, now Okta is there and your Anypoint platform credentials also there. Now if I go with this, it will redirect me to the Okta. Okay. Now I don't have any profile created in Okta. So what I'll do, I'll go ahead and log in via GitHub. The moment what happened? So I'll sign outside. Let's see from here. So if I pass that URL here. See here, what is the error they're getting? It says that IDP initialized SSO is empty. That means the error because I have not updated. I'll go back to working with my admin user first. I'll get the let me copy this URL first. Go to Okta here and edit this URL first. Whenever you're changing your Okta configuration in Anypoint platform, right, or maybe you're creating new configurations, these two URLs you need to change. This URL because every Anypoint platform account, this ID, this part will get changed. Only this part. And here in this URL, if you see, this is a template, okay, and only your organizational domain will get changed. That is what got changed here, and your provider ID will get changed. Okay, so from Okta, you can use the same application for multiple Anypoint platform account. You just need to change these two values: single sign-on URL and your audience URL. That's it. Okay, now save this. Next, finish. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll now try to log in via Okta. So I need to sign off this. Okay, now here either you can paste that URL here or you can go via custom domain. And what is the name of my custom domain? Training, I think 6306 hyphen 6306. And passes continue SAML Okta. See, now we are logging via Okta to your Anypoint platform, but this user won't be having any access. Okay, so he'll be able to see only this view. If I go to API manager now, it will throw me error saying that you don't have access. Okay, now how to get access to the default permissions? So for example, or default permissions or based on the group, right, in the Okta, how to get that group user mapped to the specific team in Anypoint platform. For that, we need to create. So what I'll do is I'll open incognito window and I log into Anypoint platform with my admin user. This one, sign in. access management. So you can go here, users. Now see, the new user got created. Now you can go ahead and assign permission to this user manually. This is one operator, one way of doing it. Second way of doing is, first go to your Okta, create a group over here. So I have created simple group called C4E here, and I have add that user, same user in this group. Okay, this is the step number one. Then go to your application, and inside the application we were passing attribute information, right? General. Here you need to pass that group information. So I'll go ahead and say edit. Next. Now we are passing user information, but we were not passing group information. Now we pass the group information. So whatever name I give here, this will be the name of my attribute in Anypoint platform. Same attribute name I need to configure there in my Anypoint platform. So we'll say we can use some regular expression here. So who your group start with C4E, you pass that with this user. Okay. Now next, save this, finish. Now in Anypoint platform, okay. So this is via Okta, right? So I'll just say sign out. Okay. I'll go to my incognito window where, so what I'll do, delete this user, because with the default permissions this user was created. I have deleted this user. Now go to your teams here, use a new feature, create a new team over here. What your team name you wanted to give, I'll just use same team, which is, now here go to settings, and the team name, right, which we have created in Okta or group, we can say, I'll map that group via this identity provider, and I'm going to say that whoever is logging from the C4E via this Okta, those will be a member of this team. Okay, that is what I'm saying. Click on add, go ahead, save changes. Now teams. Now we'll give some permission here. I'll just give design center permission to this guy. Next, training. Next, add permissions. Okay. So now I have created a team. I have mapped that group, Okta group, with this team, and I have given the permission saying that, okay, you can access design. Okay. Now I'll go back to my Okta now. Okay. Okta or Anypoint platform, where I'll try to log in. 6306. Now this is expected. Okay. What happens actually? Somebody was created. Now that is disabled or deleted by Anypoint platform admin user. Now these guys again trying to log into our Anypoint platform. Okay. So this is expected. Okay. This user is disabled. This message is expected. Now you need to go to Anypoint platform here, refresh it, enable that user. Go to users. See, you need to manually, okay, enable this user. Okay. Now go back here. Now if you go to, yeah, I did a mistake, small mistake. Still, this guy doesn't have access, right? Why? What is the mistake I did? I didn't map that in the identity provider. I didn't map the group name over here. See, so if I pass the group name now, okay. So I have mapped that group name with the team, but the actual guy group information, that guy doesn't have the group information. So if I save this now, okay, and if I go back to sign out, five, five, six, three, 60. Now if I go to design center, see, he'll be able to access now. That means without assigning any permission to the user, okay, he'll be able to see the design center now. Otherwise, without group mapping, he won't be able to see design center, or even he won't be able to access API manager. Okay, so that's the one demo. Second demo. So how much time we have, Abhishek?
We have almost 45 minutes.
Okay. Any questions?
Two questions we have. One
Mm-hmm.
is from Hitesh. Any
Mm-hmm.
impact of the existing API call while changing the one identity, for example, SAML, to another like Azure AD?
Yeah. So if you
Go
remember,
ahead.
right, when so client application that
Uh,
client provider, right?
Existing API there, but
Yeah, exists. See,
I,
so they're talking about client providers.
one
Yeah.
identity.
See, their
Yeah,
API identity provider is for user. Okay. So this is for
I will
validating
repeat
users.
again. I will repeat again.
Hmm.
Any
Hmm.
impact of the existing API's call while changing the one identity that is SAML to another that is Azure AD, like changing the identity. Does it create any impact to the existing API's call?
It is
It
called.
doesn't. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's just I mean, we are trying to log in or we are trying to access any point platform with SAML.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nothing to
So
do with the.
yeah, if you are changing client provider, definitely, because once you create a client provider, you need to go to environment here. Okay, guys, please keep in mind here. Go to environment, and for each environment, so right now there is an option here, right? So once you configure client provider, you'll get option here. Each environment you have to, just a second, cancel. No. So once you configure, right? See here, right now default client provider is Anypoint platform. Okay, so because all APIs are getting authorized or authenticated by Anypoint platform right now. So from here, from this Anypoint platform, if I change it to external client provider, definitely it is going to change, right? But consumer point of view or the API point of view, the way of accessing it, it's same. Okay, it won't change. Okay, only we are going to change now the execution time of that API. It will take little more time, because now your call from endpoint platform, it will go to the external client provider. It will get validated there. The response will come back, and then then your API will get consumed, or your business logic will get executed. If these guys are talking about client providers, for identity provider, no impact. Okay. Okay. Our intention was to configure multiple identity provider, right? So now we'll talk about, so Okta is working perfectly fine. So we have seen multiple use cases there. We have seen the default permission set also. There were no permissions assigned to that user if you don't map groups with teams. Uh, what all we can see there? I think that's all. One more thing, if you don't, okay, you need to be very careful here. When you're creating application, right? When you're creating application, you need to assign this application to at least one user. Please keep that in mind. So I missed that, during explanation. So you need to assign this user. If I delete this user, okay, from here, it will clearly throw error saying that application is not assigned to any user. Okay. So this is from the Auth tab. Now we'll go to Azure AD quickly, and first you need to create Azure account. Again, this is a trial account. Anybody can go and explore. Okay, so create your trial account. Okay, and go to the enterprise application here. You can search here, or directly if you already search, you find it here. Okay. Now go to your enterprise application here and create new application. Click on that and create your own application. Okay, give a name here and try to select this integrate any other application. This is for trial account. Okay, once you create this application, I'll go back to the application. I have already created to save some time. Now here, once you create this application, you will get this UI. Sign on here. So click on the single sign-on configuration. You need to configure these two URLs. Okay, only these two URLs. One is your identity URL, which is your, and second one is your assertion ACS. So ACS URL. Now these two URLs, both the URLs we supposed to change because these were configured with the my old Anypoint platform account. Now we'll configure this again. So now what I can do, I can go ahead first to the Anypoint platform here. Okay. And I say, once you do that, let me go to here. Okay. So you can download again metadata from here. Again, the simplest thing is download this metadata. So I have already downloaded in my folder. It's there. This one. Metadata will have all the URLs, all the keys, everything will be automatically you'll get it from here. So now if I go to my Anypoint platform and say, time I'm saying okay, new identity provider, choose the metadata. This time we'll use Azure AD. And now I'll give some name here, SAML Azure AD. Now see, these URLs are automatically populated and I don't need to copy paste anything. And yeah, audience URL again will be this one. Now you can, I told you, right? Instead of org name, you can use org ID also. It works perfectly fine. Okay. Now you don't need to pass anything. And one restrictions in Azure AD is you cannot configure groups here. With a trial account, you cannot configure groups. Okay. That's a restriction with the Azure AD. So you need to buy a licensed product and then only you'll be able to configure. So once your application is done, you need to assign this. Okay. So where is your users and groups? So here, there's no option to assign a group. Okay, so directly you go ahead and assign the user. So I have assigned the user to this application. I use the metadata of this application to configure my Anypoint platform identity provider. Now, just say save. Save the changes. Now, with this configuration also, we'll get ACS URL. Now, this ACS URL we need to update over there. Where we need to update it in this. So go to single sign-on configuration here. I need to update this both the URLs. So add URL here. Control V. This is the latest one created. Delete old one. Here also instead of 2634, I'll just say 6306. Hope that is correct. 6306 and this one. That's it.
Yes.
Save this. Yeah. Save this. And now, what else? Save. And hope this is updated. I don't need to pass anything. Yes. Now from here itself, guys, we can test it. Okay. So whether this is working or not, we can test it. Let's do this. Okay. Just a test here and test and sign in. So whatever user I have, that user will be used. directly from here. Now this is my user. SAML associate does not contain email attribute. Okay. Now, so see here. So from my Azure AD, I'm passing the information to the Anypoint platform. But from the Anypoint platform, when the assistant is coming back to the Azure AD, this email attribute is not there. Okay. So how to fix that? Okay. Intentionally, I did that. Okay. So let me go here, Azure AD. Now go to the advanced settings here. Now you need to select these things. You need to pass these values. Okay, so there is a different way of passing this value here. You need to pass with the schema. Okay, and this. So now this email address will be going back to to the Azure. Save this. Now if I go back to my go back, go back. Now see, now if I select this, see, this is the user coming from my Azure ID. Okay, and the previous one, right? Am I not this one? There it is. If I okay, now this guy won't be having any access. See, API manager also doesn't have access. Design center also he won't be having access because I won't be able to do group mapping from Azure to my teams now because with a trial account there is a restriction. Okay, so now this is prove that now we can configure multiple identity provider now with our Anypoint platform. Okay, so one is coming from Okta, second one is coming from Azure AD. Okay, that's all from my side. Okay, if you go and use this URL now, this URL, sign out this. So you'll be getting three options now to log into your Anypoint platform. One is your platform credentials, second one is your Azure AD, third one is your Okta. You can go ahead and click it here. You'll be able to see. Yeah, so it will ask you to log into your Azure account and you'll be able to access. Okay. Now that's it from my side. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and configure this also, guys. Sign out. Anypoint platform. Not this one. Sign out. Yeah. Login with the admin account. So I was maintaining two windows because in one window I was logging with the admin account, and other window I was logging with either Okta or Azure. So if I go to access management here, you can configure the client provider also. Now see, recently I'm seeing this extra option. I'm not sure when they have added this, but I was aware of only these three options. Okay, so you can go ahead configure this. The other option, it needs tenant ID. Okay, this guy needs a tenant ID. It's tenant ID of Azure ID. Okay, so that will come with, I think, with the license version of this. If you go back, you can configure this. Okay, you can create again authorization server in Okta, create application, and get the details and configure this. Okay, and once you configure this, you'll be able to get option for environments. Okay, so one environment, can have one client provider. Okay, one-to-one mapping. But one client provider can be accessible by multiple environments. But one environment can have only one client provider. So once that is done, you'll be able to apply the OAuth policy on your API, and then create a token, pass the token, validate token, and access your API. Okay. So that's it from my side, Abhishek. If you have any questions, I can, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll
Yeah,
drop.
just
Okay, I have.
we have yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So, yeah, yeah, I
Go
know.
ahead, go
Like
ahead, go ahead.
you're quite in a hurry. Like nice. You have another one. Just one
Mm.
question, and then I think Hitesh has some questions. So Hitesh, once I ask this question, you can unmute and you can ask if you have any question. So Dheeraj have one
Mm.
question. Do we have any way or method to check health check of my salmon? If there is any issue, maybe notification to concerned team to provide a better experience.
I'm not sure if I know expert from the group. Maybe they can answer this question, but I'll take it as assignment. Not clear with this question. First of all, okay. So health check of my salmon. What do you mean by that? Is there any issue? Maybe notified. Anybody from the group? They understand the question. If they, otherwise I'll. Dheeraj, can you elaborate a little bit? What do you mean by health check of my salmon? Any issue with the salmon?
Dheeraj, I'm also
Do you
giving
mean that
you
you?
mic access.
Hmm? Dheeraj,
Yeah,
go ahead.
sorry.
Shiva, you have any idea about this? Like certificate and stuff? No, 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 no,
He's
no.
asking that.
Yeah, no, there won't be any
I guess
issues
he's
like this. Okay. So
Okay.
see, what happens when you create a profile, right? So once you create a profile in Okta, I'm taking example of Okta. Once you log into your Anypoint platform, the same user will be created over there also. Okay. So the only the user identification information will be shared. Till that credentials won't be there in the Anypoint platform. The credentials will be there in the Okta only. So if you're rotating your credentials there, your username will be still same. So the for Anypoint platform point of view, no change. And yeah, definitely if the identity provider is down, then there is no way. Okay, so that's what I think you're asking about, right? Whether the is working as expected or not.